Thanks for listening to the Star Sport Podcast, number one for sport in West Cork.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport Podcast. My name is Jack McCarran of the Southern Star and I'm joined as always by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. On this week's show we'll be taking a deep dive into the world of Beara GAA and discussing the challenges facing the clubs on the Beara Peninsula with Beara GAA chairman Jim Hanley.
We're also going to focus on road bowling for the first time since we launched the Star Sport Podcast. Bowl Cumann PRO Pat McCarthy was in the studio earlier today to discuss a recently launched book celebrating 50 years of the International Bowlplaying Association, and we'll also be giving away a copy of the book to one lucky listener.
But we're going to start with Beara GAA, Kieran, and the chat you had with Jim Hanley in relation to the challenges faced by the clubs on the peninsula. It's become a common thread throughout rural Ireland in recent years, clubs constantly struggling to keep the show on the road. And before we do hear from Jim, I just want to get your thoughts on what the lay of the land is for Beara GAA at the minute.
First off, I think the Beara GAA board deserves huge credit for this. They're putting together a strategic review. So the first step in that, or not the first step, I think the first step was putting together that GAA strategic review committee earlier in the year, and they've been involved with the county board too. So there is an open public meeting at Skull Pub Beara in Castletown Beara this Saturday evening, October 26th at 6 p.m. That's a very important step in this review because it's given local people the chance to voice their opinions and contribute to the conversation. And really, I suppose the end goal is to have Beara GAA in a stronger place. I suppose you don't really realise, people outside of Beara don't really realise the problems at Beara GAA and the challenges that they face, Jack. You would hear in this interview the words rural depopulation, population decline, population drain, because Beara does face unique challenges. It's the furthest west division in the county, and they have been hit by rural depopulation. A lot of people have left over the years. Jim's own club, Beara Island, couldn't field a team this year, which is quite sad when you consider the history of Beara Island. There's 6 clubs out there. They're all doing their very best to survive. To be quite honest, they're trying to survive. So that's why this strategic review is very, very important, because hopefully it's going to put forward a plan that Beara GAA can use for the next 5 years. That's the hope, kind of. That's why I'm going to say it again. It's so important that as many Beara GAA people as possible attend this meeting in Skull Pub Beara this Saturday evening, October 26th at 6 p.m. It's a chance to get your opinion heard, because everybody has an opinion. If you're sitting inside the bar on Saturday night, you have an opinion on something, but you mightn't share it with anyone, or you might just, this is a chance to kind of put that opinion out there, and it might just help Beara GAA. So quite an important meeting. I wish him the very best of luck, and I caught up with Jim to chat about Beara GAA and the strategic review. Jim, before we actually talk about the strategic review meeting that's coming up, can you talk to us a small bit about the current health of Beara GAA at the moment? How are things out in Beara?
If we're very straight about it, and you look at results on the field of play, I don't think they make for particularly brilliant reading. We have 2 intermediate clubs, the Premier Intermediate Club in Castletown Beara, and Intermediate in Adrigal, 2 Junior A clubs, Glengarriff, 2 Junior A clubs in Oran and Garnish, and then we have Glengarriff and Beara Island. And a variety of clubs in terms of sizes, but if we're saying, are any of our clubs really competing competing as in winning counties? I think Castletown Beara could certainly are thereabouts in the Premier Intermediate Championship. I think the rest of the clubs, though, genuinely, if we're talking about county titles, we're a bit off. I know Glengarriff got to a county semi-final, I think it was last year at Junior B level. But realistically, the clubs aren't aren't really gaining a huge amount of traction in county competitions. And then if you look at Beara teams themselves, it's a while really since any Beara team was competitive at any in any of our championships, either our Beara senior team or under 21 teams or 2 adult teams. Now at different times, then the underage teams, you get a good crop of players, and if they're coached well, they might get a run and go to county semi-final or final or something like that. But it's been a while since there's been a lot of county titles coming in. Now, having said that, at underage, even just this weekend, Cahill had a very successful weekend. They won a minor county title, and Castletownbere won a title also this weekend at under 16 level, and also Cahill won a title under 14. So there are green shoots at underage level, and there is some good work being done at underage level. At adult level, I think we probably could do a bit more, But so that's kind of a rough overview of where it's at the moment.
You kind of mentioned green shoots there, Jim. Would the hope be with this kind of like with Beara GAA kind of with this strategic review for kind of to help more shoots grow? Kind of I suppose. What's the hope with this strategic review? Like what do Beara GAA hope to kind of gain from this review, Jim?
I suppose what we're looking to do is to get everyone in a room basically and see, look, can we work together to improve everybody's lot, if you know what I'm saying? Because there's an awful lot of good work being done, particularly at underage level. But just to kind of say, well, look, if we work together, are there areas that we can improve on? There could be lots of different things, but it's to get people's ideas, because a lot of people have approached me over the last 2 years that I've been involved and chairman of the board, that people say, we're going to have to do this, we're going to have to do that. Well, now's their opportunity to come in on Saturday night and actually say, do you know what, I'd love to see people trying this or that or whatever the idea may be, and have a discussion around those issues and actually see what would work and what maybe wouldn't work, So that's the idea of the strategic plan, and hopefully we'll get some people in to have a look at that on Saturday night.
Like you were saying there, Jim, like this is a fantastic chance, kind of like this strategic review meeting is on this Saturday night. It's a great chance for anyone involved in Beara GAA to come along and voice their opinion. Like we all know, everybody has an opinion on something. And this is a chance for their voices to be heard. So I presume you want as many people as you can to come on Saturday night.
Absolutely, and I think as well, not only do we want as many people as possible, we want the full spectrum of people. Mm-hmm. So that's like players are the people I'd love to see in the room. And with that in mind, we kind of said, look, is there some way we can attract players in? Because look, players don't come to meetings. That's not why they're involved in the GAA, and I completely understand that. But why we're doing this is so that maybe in the years ahead we can improve how things are done in Beara. And we're doing it so that our players, our young players, and maybe the next generation who are only in their teens or whatever the case may be, that things are organised a little bit better for them too. So I'd love to see the players come in and give their experience and give whether they're criticisms, that's fine, but to look to the future as well and say, again, we'd love to see this change or whatever the case may be, and to encourage them to come in. Conor Cumann is involved in this as well. Mm-hmm. So we've asked Conor to come down as well, and Conor has agreed to meet with players, in a room and just listen to what they have to say. There won't be anyone else in the room. There'll be no Beara officials or anyone else. It's anyone who's playing club football in Beara. In you go, have a chat, Conor Cumann, and he'll relay the message back. Mm-hmm. And what better person to have to be throwing your ideas at, and maybe listen to Conor and maybe see, I don't know, will he give any advice to them or whatever the case may be. But there's an opportunity to talk to someone of vast experience of football. And share your opinions with them,
What's been the timeline with this, Jim? When did it kind of thought about this strategic review first come about? I know you put a committee together earlier in the summer, but was it something you thought about earlier in the year, kind of, or what's the whole kind of thinking behind this as well?
I think the initial kind of thoughts on it were around the idea of trying to organise ourselves better. Kind of came out, if I'm honest, after the senior championship this year, and the Beara team after this year. At the following board meeting, we had a discussion about what we were discussing earlier. Where are things at?
Mm-hmm.
We had, if we're honest, we had a different disappointing performance, and it was right. Are we going to just do the same thing again next year? And the next year, and the next year, and where are we actually going? And we had a very open discussion at our board meeting, and we kind of had it. We said, right, look, we need to do something. So we said, a few of us, through the officers, kind of sat down and said, right, look, a strategic review is something we could do, and if we do that, then we, maybe we'll make improvements for the years ahead. Now the thing has grown a bit since then. It's kind of grown legs, and we're not just talking about the Beara teams. We're looking at the wider picture and saying, if we can improve the clubs and help the clubs to be better themselves, then naturally everybody will rise, including Beara. So, that's kind of how it came about. We then put a committee in place around the start of the summer, and the committee has been meeting a couple of times, meeting with the county board over the summer, and we've decided to go ahead now next Saturday and have the public meeting.
And Beara GAA, Jim, it is stronger when the 6 clubs pull together, isn't it? Kind of like that. This meeting on Saturday night is open, like you said, to everyone, and hopefully there'll be huge attendance from all the clubs. But it really is a chance for the clubs to pull together, and kind of like you said there, a riding tide does lift all boats as well.
Yeah, it is really like in any division or in any group of teams, you're going to have, when they're neighbours, and there's going to be rivalries, and there's, of course, there's always rivalries, and that's what makes the GAA, if we're honest about it, But I think Beara is a little bit unique, and I might give you an example in a second, in that when Beara comes together and works together, what they end up with is a much better product than if they work alone as a single unit. I think anyway. Now maybe other people will disagree, but I'll give you an example of it was about 2 weeks ago now. We got the Cork Minor Cup down, and we arranged for it to tour all the schools, and it was a fantastic 2 days where it toured all the primary schools and the secondary school in Castleinbear. But on the Thursday night, the night in between the 2 days, Oran decided they'd have their own kind of reception for the people involved. Like, they had 3 people involved. They'd Joseph O'Shea was playing, Bobby Dwyer was their manager, and also Brian McCarthy was on the backroom team. And they sat down themselves, and they gave us a buzz, and they said, listen, this is a wider Beara thing. Like, Ollie Rue O'Sullivan from Garnish was involved, Dennis Collins from Glengarriff was involved. And they said, look, would we make it a wider thing and bring these people in? And then we got on to Beara ladies, and we said Christine O'Sullivan won a minor title with Cork Minors as well. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing grew, and yes, it was held in Irish, and yes, it was, I suppose, focused on Oran, but it was a wider thing for the entire Beara community, and I think it was the better for it, and I think it showed great maturity in Oran, Cushton and Oak to do that, because they were opening their doors to their neighbours, and that really, that really showed how Beara can work together, because there is a Beara identity which I think is stronger than most other divisions. Not all, mm-hmm. Duhallow have a very strong identity, and they're, and different things, but some of the other divisions wouldn't have anywhere near a strong identity as we have.
Like you said there, Jim, like Beara does have a really strong identity, and I suppose Beara does have unique problems too that the other divisions in Cork just don't have. Kind of, you're the furthest west division, and we've talked about before, like, kind of when it comes to rural population and population decline, like Beara is hit a lot harder than any other division, to be fair. And I don't think people fully appreciate the challenges that Beara clubs have until you actually spend some time in Beara. And I know Cork chairperson Tracy Kennedy made that point too when she spent a couple of days touring Beara last year. In terms of the challenges that the clubs face, the kind of rural population and population decline, they are big challenges, aren't they, Jim?
They're enormous challenges, and like I'll tell you an interesting one. We looked at for our tour of the cups. There was quite a bit of planning had to go into that, and we thought we'd get it done in one day. And then we actually, it was pointed out to me fairly quickly. He said, "Come here." And it was Paddy Byrne in Garnish said, "You wouldn't drive around Beara and stop off for half an hour in each of the 9 primary schools. You couldn't do it in one day. It's that big, and that's just driving around Beara." So we had to split it. Therefore, we needed the cups for 2 days and not just one day. And even at that, it was a squeeze. And that's how within Beara is a huge place. And then you take it that Glengariff is an hour and 20-minute drive from the city, and that's the first entry point into the peninsula. So if you have to go west to Carmore to Allihies, that's another probably nearly an hour, I'd say. So you're at least two and a quarter hours to go from Cork to the very tip of Beara. It's a long way west, Now it's beautiful, it's absolutely beautiful, but it is a long way west. And we often hear clubs coming down to play, or whether it be an intermediate team or junior team or whatever the case may be, and they go, "Oh God, it's a long way down, will you meet us halfway?" and this kind of stuff, And they don't realise they have to make the travel once every second year, whereas Beara teams have to make that journey every second time they go play a game, and that gets lost on people, but you can't be complaining about that. That's just geography, it's just reality, and you have to get over it. The depopulation is a big problem. There are 25% less boys in the primary schools than there were in the primary schools 10, 15 years ago. If you tot up all the boys in the peninsula, there's 25% less, go back 10, 15 years. And if you go back another 10 or 15 years, it's another 25%. So the population is declining at a fairly serious rate. But you add to the situation that when people grow up in Beara, maybe they go to college, they'll play football in college if they're good enough, and they'll come back and they'll play with their club, and that's all brilliant, and they'll stay competing with their club. And often fellas will play until they're well into their 30s, which is fantastic to see. But what happens then is when they settle down, they get married, have kids, the usual stuff. The proportion of people who settle in Beara is smaller as compared with the rest of the population. So not only have you a population decline, you have a population drain. And all these guys who played their football, commuting up and down to their home club, they settle in a commuter belt around Cork City, or maybe it's up in Dublin, or whatever the case may be. And then the next generation, their sons and daughters, aren't playing for Beara because they're no longer living in the area. So there's a population decline, but there's also a population drain. And they're serious issues because you simply don't have the numbers,
Your own club, Bear Island, how things going there this season, Jim? Kind of like, I suppose, in terms of the clubs and population drain, kind of Bear Island probably suffers more than most. Is that fair to say?
It is, yeah. I mean, my own club is, it's a very unique club, and it's been able to sustain an adult football team for more than 20 years now. But unfortunately, this year we weren't able to field, and that's just simply there aren't enough young men on the island or connected with the island that are available to play. We still play in the island competition, which is a separate kind of entity, really, And but yeah, that's a problem, and it's a very difficult thing to deal with, if I'm quite honest. And just in talking to our own fellas who maybe played for quite a number of years, and I don't meet them as much anymore, and they don't meet each other as much anymore. A few of them have said to me, I really miss the football, And it's not necessarily because we were winning anything. It was just because you were meeting up with your buddies, And it's funny when a football club is in decline like that. You fight to hold on to it. But sometimes it's a very difficult thing to come to terms with when it is under really serious threat, and we are. And I hope that there aren't any more clubs in there who will end up in the same situation.
You've only touched on a couple of topics there, Jim, but again, I think it shows you kind of it's a taster of the conversation that hopefully will take place at Skull Pub Beara in Castletown Beara this Saturday evening. The meeting kicks off at 6 p.m. Is that right, Jim? Is it?
Yeah, the players' meeting is at 5:30.
Mm-hmm.
So we said with Conor Cumann, and the wider public meeting then is at 6 p.m.
And what's the kind of timeline, the kind of thought process after that then? Kind of is the hope to kind of create a plan after this in the next couple of weeks or months that you can present in and kind of put forward into the clubs?
Yeah, that's the plan. We had hoped that we might get it done by our convention, but that's probably an ambitious timeline, but certainly by Christmas, I think, And, just to throw ideas out there, like what do, for people going into the meeting, what do they want, like,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking of our GDA, James McCarthy. James, when he comes down, does great work on the peninsula, but James has, I don't know how many clubs he has, 40 or 50 clubs. I think he's 80 primary schools. The man is worked round the clock, And then just, throwing it out there that, could we in Beara do something to you kind of, help out there and kind of maybe with a bit of support from County Board, from Corky, could we put something in place that we could push things on a bit, those are the kind of things that we need to be thinking about and talking about. And, like once people get talking, we're talking here now. Once you get talking, the ideas or the people's thoughts kind of start coming out, and people actually I know that these are issues that people actually think about themselves. Any people who are involved in football, they said, geez, wouldn't it be great if we could do whatever it happens to be, X, Y, Z, but now is your chance to actually come in and put it forward, like, and have it discussed.
Brilliant. Jim, best of luck on Saturday night.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Star Sport Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to all things sport in West Cork. Don't forget to pick up this Thursday's Southern Star newspaper, including our award-winning sports section with everything a West Cork sports fan could want. In shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world via www.thesouthernstar.ie/e-paper. The Southern Star and the Star Sport Podcast, #1 for sport in West Cork.
Road bowling is a sport alien to most people in Ireland, but across West Cork it's very much a part of everyday life. Rarely a day goes by, especially in the summer months, that you don't cross paths with a score taking place somewhere across the region. But how much do we actually know about the sport and its history? A recently released book from Cumann celebrating 50 years of international bowlplaying looks at the history of the game in an international context, and we were delighted to welcome Cumann PRO Pat McCarthy into studio earlier to chat about the book.
And before we hear from Pat, we're going to give the listeners the chance to win a copy of this book, which is almost 300 pages of bowling goodness. For those watching on YouTube, it's now been modelled by Jack to my right. Good job there, Jack.
Thanks, Kieran.
To enter and be with a chance of winning a copy of this new book, email sport@thesouthernstar.ie with the subject line road bowling and leave your name and address, and we'll pick out one lucky winner. There's not even a question here, Jack. It actually doesn't get much easier. All you have to do is email sport@southernstar.ie with the subject line road bowling, and you're in with a chance of winning.
What a great competition.
Ah, super. But for now, let's hear from Pat McCarthy about the book and the state of road bowling in general. Congratulations on the book, Pat. Celebrating 50 years, International Bowlplaying Association, 1969 to 2019.
Thank you.
Fantastic book. Absolutely fantastic book.
It commemorates a milestone that we feel is well worth commemorating. It's the start of international bowlplaying, which was a huge step for bowling at the time, back in 1969. Nobody could have envisaged the success it was eventually, but the people in charge of the sport at that time, Fleur Crowley and Damon O'Carroll, they decided to go on their instincts, I think, and then with they got the support of the players and the games public to take that chance and go to Holland for that first international. And the entire venture was in the making throughout the 60s. I think it started with some letters, some communications between a Dutchman named Johan Poorthuis and Fleur Crowley, who was the then chairman of Cumann Ahern. The Dutchmen wanted to explore the possibility of our game was pretty similar in technique, in throwing technique to their game, which is played on a sand moors course, different type of ball, but similar technique, similar game. It's a man-to-man competition. So the explorations went on. They met in late 1967, I think, and decided, Johan Poorthuis decided to invite an Irish team to Holland in 1969. So that's where it started. The Germans, the Dutch area where road bowling is played is quite close to the German border. And they have a similar style of ball playing in the North German regions of Schleswig-Holstein and Ostfriesland. And they were on board then at that early stage as well. So that first international took place in Losser in 1969. And
the rest is history, is this?
It was a momentous trip at the time. There's good stories in the book on the lead up to it and the characters that were on that trip. Many of them local. Mick Barry, the game's best players at the time, Mick Barry, Dennis Scully, Johnny Holland, the local man from Drina, was on it. There was various other people, Johnny Creedon, all the top players at the time were on that trip. And it's a good story, an interesting story, and how it, from its beginnings and how it has evolved.
Like you mentioned there, Pat, as well, like there's the kind of different disciplines, you know, kind of like bowling, we know it so well from here in Cork and Ireland, but like you mentioned there, the Netherlands and Germany have their own. Can you talk to us about the different disciplines, kind of, and I suppose the differences between the sports?
Well, the difference is quite a lot of the German bowling, of the Dutch moors, we'll start with that one. It's a team sport and it's played on a sanded moors course close to the sea. Generally, that's where we've played it. But they have a very similar throwing style to the Irish method of throwing the ball. Now their iron ball is it's a larger ball with steel studs embedded in a wooden ball. And again, the rules of the game are similar in that the maximum distance covered is the best, and you cover a course in the least number of shots, similar to an Irish road bowling score. And they were the main similarities. Then with the German main discipline is the loft, and lofting is a huge part of Irish road bowling as well, and was more so then back in 1969. And it means throwing the ball into the air as far or as long as you can, or as high as you can, getting again the maximum distance out of it. It's quite a spectacular exercise when viewed, and what we see in the European Champions. There are two German associations. One play off they run up a ramp and they loft as far as they can, and it's a big athletic undertaking. It has been done. We've seen plenty of examples of it, lofting the viaduct in Ireland and that part of things. So the whole idea of the European Championships was to get the different associations immersed in the different disciplines of the other associations as well, and that succeeded.
I wonder when those men back in '69, when they kind of ventured for the first Europeans, would they realise all these years later that it's going stronger than ever, and now there's actually a book about it celebrating their feats?
Well, we would hope people like Fleur Crowley and Damon O'Carroll are looking down benignly on the efforts of what followed them, because it has been a monumental success. It expanded. The youth section was added in the early 70s. The ladies joined up in 1984, and under 18 girls are very much part of it now. So there's 4 separate European Championships now when they're held every 4 years, and they attract huge crowds, and there's great colour, pageantry. Everything about it is really international in the sense that you're up there on a podium. And for Irish road bowlers, like ours is a basically simple rural road game in lots of ways, but for those people that wear the Irish jersey and to be on a podium winning a gold medal is a huge a huge honour, and I think it's, if I could quote Mick Barry in one of them here, Mick was 50 odd years when he travelled there in 1969. He's the greatest ball player of all time, but he says after his first visit there, it was one of the most emotional moments of my life to stand there in a place of honour while the Irish national anthem was being played. Here I was, after all these years, having a medal hung around my neck and representing my country. And that for him was a huge thing, so different from throwing man to man on the road and often for money. But that same feeling will, if you ask any of today's players now, the great players that have done so much today, they'll tell you the same thing, that it's a huge honour to be out there as part of a team. And
it is, like you said there, Pat, it's a great outlet for these kind of local bowl players across Ireland, because they're getting recognised on the international stage, and like you said there, it's every 4 years. And different countries, it's kind of rotated to hosting of the Europeans.
That's true. That's a great aspect of it as well. It's since 1980, it has gone to every 4 years rotation. We go to Germany twice in that 16-year period. We go to Holland and Italy, who have joined since the year 2000. So they're a very important part as well. And they play a road bowling game, very, very similar to ours, so that's why they have come on board as well. But it is a wonderful experience, much looked forward to by the players, and we have seen down through the years, hugely enjoyed as well. The book is full of action shots, pictures of players celebrating their victories and joining together as a band of brothers out there, that kind of thing. And it's a lovely thing for road bowling. There's no doubt about it.
And that's why this book is so important too, Pat. Like you said, it's full of pictures, but it's full of history too, and all the characters and the stories from all the Europeans over the years. We've reports.
That's right.
This is a very important project that Cumann undertook. Can you just talk to me a small bit why you decided to put this book together now?
Well, I think our treasurer James O'Driscoll sums it up when he said it's been a magical 50 years for those events. It has done so much for the game itself now. Bowling's main output through the years, its championship series, but those internationals are very, very close to the top of importance in bowling's agenda every year. Like once they're over, you're looking forward to the next 4 years. But it celebrates every aspect of it there. We've pictures in black and white back from the 1969 and the early 70s. Pretty good ones too. And right on down through the years, they're all chronicled. We have to acknowledge the input of the Southern Star, and that the Fleur Crowley, who covers the first 6 internationals, his reports are all included there. He was the Dian of writers, of road bowling writers, definitely anyway. And the then head of the Southern Star here afforded him the time, and Liam O'Regan, they were good friends, and he afforded him the space and the time to write about bowling, and it brought it to a huge audience as well. But all those reports are chronicled in the book from 1969 right up to 1980 when the late Fleur passed away. Christy Santry follows up with the reports then, and I've come in for the last few there, trying to follow in very exalted footsteps. But everything is covered extensively. It's a great record of the European Championships. The feats of all the top men are there. David Murphy's 3 in a row is hugely significant there. Back in the 70s, Seamus Sexton won 2 gold medals. We were at a low ebb for a long time there, without a gold medal on our own discipline, which hit us badly from 1980.
Probably hurt us all too, did it?
Absolutely. From 1988 to 2008, the Germans and the Dutch took our game to heart, improved their huge challenge to us every year to beat them. We have done so the past 3 years through David Murphy's outstanding performances. But down to the ladies, Carmel Ryan did it in 2012, but we were beaten the last time again by Silke Tulk in the ladies. But it goes right through to the youths as well. We need to be very much on top of our game, even to win at our own game.
But isn't that great to see how the Irish road bowling travels so well? You know that, like you said, they're like Silke in the Netherlands, and like the German and Italian bowlers as well. That they can excel at this sport too. It's fantastic to see kind of the sport go international for want of a better word.
And these people aren't exiles now. They're native German and Dutch people that have taken to the game hugely and practice it and play it now as very much part of their own championships as well. And that is a huge tribute to ordinary game, I suppose, showing the 28 on the Irish Road, how it has been adapted. And we see it in the other events there, such as the King and Queen of the Road, when these Germans and Dutch travel over to compete as well, and they're quite adept at it. And it's a good tribute to the standing of our game that they enjoyed so much as well.
And you mentioned David Murphy there, and I'm looking here at the book now, the 2008 European Championships, which were the 13th hosting of them, held in Cork. I presume that was a pretty special time, Pat, was it?
It was a very special time, and it was a huge undertaking. The hosting of these involves an awful lot of organisation, a lot of manpower, and moving of logistics here and there. But they're worth it all. They were worth it all that magnificent weekend. We had we had the lofting in the Trabeg in the Nemo Rangers ground. Then we travelled to North Cork to Rathmore for the Moors event. That was run by Philip O'Donovan. And the day in the Bandon Road where David Murphy won the goal was absolutely a superb event altogether. I suppose I think it was Eamon Sweeney who writes in the Independent. Can I quote him?
You can work with it.
You know, I think he put it nicely when he was at the event, and he wrote, we hear a lot of stuff about European integration, and most of its time its proponents seem to be positing some kind of homogenized vanilla entity where national differences have been ironed out. Yet I have never seen the concept so perfectly epitomised as it was over those 3 days in Cork, where the 4 countries involved show that integration is all about cherishing what is distinct as well as what we have in common.
Brilliant.
So that kind of sums up, everybody enjoyed that now, the Irish more so, because they recovered ground that they had lost on the road through Murphy's achievement. And not only that, they filled 8 of the first 10 places on the road that day.
That makes it even more memorable.
Mick Young and Michael Toll were down the line, and all the Irish team performed to their peak on that beautiful May Day on the Bandon Road.
And it's brilliant to see like the exploits of 2008, and all the Europeans are covered in this book, Pat. And as well as that, the plans are already afoot, I see, for the next host of the Europeans next year. Trials are ongoing. Just talk to us as well bit too about how bowlers get picked to represent Ireland. Like let's say next year's team that's going to the Europeans, how are those men, women and youths picked?
Well, Kieran, it's kind of natural that you would look for the best to go, and we have been fortunate down 2 years, both in our administrators and in our players, that the best have responded hugely positively to this European journey, and they've responded again this time. We're undertaking trials at the moment in Castletown, Canada. They're based even up to last Saturday. We were doing trials again on the moors, but all our top men have been there over the past weeks. Martin Coppinger is now on board. We had a special celebratory event this past June in Germany, and Martin excelled there, so he'd be very much part of the team this year, as well as the Murphy brothers, David and Aidan, James Donovan, Gary Daly. Those players will be out to the fore, and they're all invited to, and they do come on board, and obviously they will be hard to beat. Junior players may get in if they're performing excellently as well, and trials in the 3 disciplines, the German loft, the moors and on the road, and all 3, your tallies, your scores in all 3 are tallied and averaged, and your best average, that's how the team, and that goes for our ladies as well. The people like Kelly Mellon and Carmel Ryan will be very much part of the team.
It's very much the best of the best, you know, which is great too for bowlers, because they have to raise their game if they want to represent Ireland and go to Europeans. They have to be their best.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that was the big thing about 2008. We had a special coach brought in. Mark McManus was his name, and he conditioned and he programmed the team pretty good for that occasion. And we'll be doing the same again for 2020, getting players, getting the best out of.
You actually mentioned conditioned, and I think it was David Murphy was chatting to before. And he said the difference between bowling going back 20 years ago to now, you know, in terms of the training, they do diets almost, you know, kind of gym work and stuff. Like in talking about the elite bowlers here, like the game has come on an awful lot.
Oh, it has. People, the modern day player takes it very seriously there now. Like when you have quite a lot of people like James Donovan now, he's a pretty high profile GA player as well. They would be very, very big in being at their peak for bowling just as well as they would be for any other sports. And it shows this particular championship year has been absolutely outstanding. They've been truly magnificent performances in all grades. When the local man here, Michael Bohan, won the intermediate, he's challenging strongly for a place on the team for Germany next year as well, and all those are in, they won't be lacking in for want of fitness or anything like that.
You're a man who's been involved in bowling for probably longer than you can even remember. How much of a labour of love was this book, and how proud is everyone associated with bowl coming to see such a fantastic kind of final product?
Well, I suppose the initiative was mainly driven by the association, those at the helm, Susan Green and James O'Driscoll. Now, Greta Cormacan did probably more work than anybody with it in the sourcing photographs and getting stuff ready for print and that sort of thing. She was a huge involvement in the European journey as well, being the first lady to win a gold medal at those when they were introduced back in 1984. But since we've been growing up with bowling, we've good interest in all sports, but bowling has been a great passion for an awful lot of us for an awful long time, and it's a pleasure reading back the years. We've become great fans of Fleur Crowley's writing back through the 40s and 50s and 60s, and it was a nice job to do in that sense that it was really, I suppose, just a labour of love, because we had something significant to celebrate, and it was a matter of getting it down there, and Mern here in the Southern Star to design it, so we think we have a good product there to celebrate. Something
you should be very proud of. And I'm going to mention the Christmas board now, because Christmas isn't too far away, Pat. And
yes,
for anyone associated with bowling, kind of this is an ideal Christmas present, and it's only €15, which
That's
is
right, yeah.
it's in modern terms. It's a bargain, absolute bargain.
280-page book. There's over 500 photographs in it. We think it is. Yeah, it's a good present for anybody at all who's interested in bowling. It's a good read, and it's a good chronicle of history of a very important part of bowling. And it's out there, and we've pretty limited number of copies going. It mainly was the main idea was to actually celebrate it, so we made a book of it, and it's out there now. And we've had a very good launch as well at the County Hall in Cork there a few weeks back. It was attended by well over 100 people. Deputy County Mayor Joe Carroll was there, and the president of the International Bowlplaying Association, Allies Timmerhouse, came over to especially launch it. And there was nice things said. Retired Bishop John Buckley was present, and quite a few more former medal winners and were there as well. So it's got a good send off, and brilliant, and it's out there.
Tell us where we can buy it. So for anyone listening or watching, where can they pick up a copy of the book?
You can buy it. It's in. We're talking from Skibbereen here. It's in our local outlets there, Fields and Cathal O'Donovan's, and it's in the bookshops in Clon. It's in Bantry Bookstore. It's in Waterstones in Cork for those city followers we have, and it's in McCarthy's Newsagents Macroom, and Jimmy League's Centra, Dermanway Super Value, and it's in Bandon O'Murco's in Shannon as well. So it's all around, and anybody connected with bowling would point in the direction of where they can get one pretty easily.
Brilliant. Pat, thanks for joining us. Congratulations again. Fantastic.
Thank you, Kieran. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for listening to the Star Sport Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to all things sport in West Cork. Don't forget to pick up this Thursday's Southern Star newspaper, including our award-winning sports section with everything a West Cork sports fan could want. In shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world via www.southernstar.ie/e-paper. The Southern Star and the Star Sport Podcast, number 1 for sport in West Cork.
Welcome back to the Star Sport Podcast, and before we wrap up today's show, we're going to take a quick look at what to expect in this Thursday's Southern Star. And I've seen some of the pages. This one is not to be missed. It's an absolute cracker of a sports section. So Kieran, you might just give us a bit of a taster of what readers can expect to read.
I'll try and whet the appetite, so Jack.
Do. Yeah.
Plenty going on in this week's sports section. This Sunday at the County Senior Football Final, the Castlehaven team of 1994 will be honoured. That's the Castlehaven team that beat O'Donovan Rossa in an epic 2-game saga back in '94, Jack. So what we've done, we've 3 or 4 pages looking back on, I suppose, that Castlehaven and O'Donovan Rossa, kind of the rivalry, the build up to the games itself. But first there was the drawing game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, 22,000 there. 2 weeks later the replay. There's talks that there was nearly 30,000 there, which is incredible for 2 West Cork country clubs to draw such a massive crowd to Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So kind of chat to players and from both sides to give a sense and a taste, or kind of 25 years on, what it was like to live through that rivalry, what it was like to be involved in those games. So even for that alone, this week's Southern Star is worth picking up. Also, we have a special feature looking at the Carbery 1994 senior hurling team that were honoured at last weekend's county senior hurling final. That was the one and only time that Carbery won a senior hurling title, and Tom Lyons has done a great job now chatting to those involved in that Carbery success. So again, big feature and well worth picking up Thursday Star to read. We also have coverage. Gabriel Rangers are through to the county intermediate football final, so congratulations to them. They beat Drumtariff last weekend. That one also means that Gabriels are up into the new Premier Intermediate Championship next year, so it was double delight for Gabriels. Also, the Fastnet Rally is on in Bantry this Sunday, so we have a big preview of that with all the locals involved. The Hart brothers, David and Conor Hart from Kinsale, are in Vancouver this week, and ahead of a huge weekend for the Irish men's senior hockey team. They're taking on Canada Saturday and Sunday over 2 games, and the winner on aggregate, Jack, gets a ticket to next year's Olympic Games. So there's a lot on the line. I was chatting to David. He's the Ireland goalkeeper and captain, and it was raining in Vancouver when I was chatting to him, so kind of felt a small bit like home, I think he was saying. But huge chance for Ireland to get back to another Olympic Games.
I don't know if I ever told you, but I was on my holidays in Vancouver just this summer gone, so there was no rain when I was there, mostly sunshine and blue skies. But
did you see many hockey pitches around the place, hockey fields?
Is
it a big sport over, I wonder?
Ice hockey is the biggest sport there. The Vancouver Whitecaps regularly contest in the latter stages of the Stanley Cup. Field hockey, I couldn't be so sure, because there are AstroTurf pitches there. I'm sure you can play any sport in them most of the time. True,
very true. So we have an interview with David Hart as he talks about...
Maybe he'll get scouted by the Whitecaps while he's over there. I wonder, can he skate?
Well, he was twice voted the world's best goalkeeper, so I'd say that man, whatever he throws his hat at, he'd be good. So,
just to not dwell on the ice hockey goalkeeper, but did you see former Chelsea and Arsenal goalkeeper Peter Cech has switched to the ice from... He probably now grew up skating, being that he's from the Czech Republic, and I'm sure
he'd have an advantage that way.
Yeah, but maybe if David could get down to Cork on ice this Christmas and learn how to skate, he could be back to Vancouver quicker than he expected. Alright, anyway, I'll let you continue.
Anyway, best of luck to Conor, David Hart and all the Ireland men's hockey team. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that they'll win their ticket to next year's Olympic Games in Tokyo and swell the West Cork interest. So plenty going on in this week's Star, Jack, and like I always say, I'd recommend picking it up on Thursday morning.
And if you can't, I'm just going to reiterate that you can buy it online, www.southernstar.ie/e-paper. But as Kieran says, you cannot beat the real thing, especially with this 3-page feature, I guess you could call it, on the 1994 Cork County Final between Castlehaven and O'Donovan Rossa. I've had a read of it. There's some great stories in there, some great insights, and just some great memories from whether you were a Castlehaven fan or an O'Donovan Rossa fan at the time. Just great memories and some hilarious anecdotes there as well.
We've bulls, sheep, cows, you name it, it's in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for listening to this week's Star Sport podcast. We'll be back at the same time next week. So if you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Acast, Stitcher, or wherever else you listen to the show. Subscribe is a word I always kind of